Any idea? No idea?
Look at the smaller parts.
It's okay, Fair.
Yeah, very good. So this is bottom up.
Recording the
bottom up,
story.
right? Yeah, so you start from specifics, smaller parts, and then you move to the generals. You move to the universal. And then in the top down, you start from the top, from the general, and then you move to the specifics. So back in the days when everyone used to believe in religion, everyone used to believe in God, and so people used to debate about which religion is the true religion, because people already believed in God, people already believed in religion. But unfortunately, after Enlightenment, modernism and postmodernism, so there has been a wave of atheism, of skepticism, and agnosticism. And because of that, now the focus has shifted from the top-down approach, which was proving that your religion is the right religion, to a bottom-up approach. Right? So you are now trying to establish the existence of God, and then after the existence of God, then you have to establish why, right? Why the particular mention of God in your scripture? Why is that true? And then after that, from then onwards, you have to prove why your religion is the truth. Okay. So now the focus of people have shifted from theology to what we call the philosophy of religion. So let's say if there is an agnostic, does not know whether God exists or not. Okay, so how would you convince him in a very, you don't have to be philosophical at all. But let's say from a Quranic paradigm or from Sunnah, do you have any clue as to how you would prove to him that God exists? Any rational evidence? It has to be simple, it cannot be complicated. Last session was very complicated, so this session will keep it simple. So, yeah.
Repeat it.
Let's say a skeptic and agnostic, right? How would you approach to him? Let's say he asks you about God, about the religion, and ask you whether God exists. So what would you say to him? Yeah. See?
About the structure of everything.
Yeah, very good. The order in the universe, so there has to be a designer. The design in the universe. We have got this is the Quranic argument as well. So one of the most powerful verses that I can think of in the Quran is in Surah 2. Am khuluqu min ghayri shay am hum khaliqun. Am khalaqu as-samawati wal ard wa la yuqin. Anyone knows what it means? Am khuluqu min ghayri shay, right? Which means that they created out of nothing. Am humul khaliqun. Or did they create themselves? So Allah is asking the people, were you created out of nothing? If there was just nothing and you just popped into existence, or you created yourself. Okay. Am khalaqu samawati wal ard, or did they create the samawat, the heavens and the earth? Wallahu. They have no certainty. So you can say, look, whether you created yourself, so that is a logical impossibility, because in order for you to create yourself, you have to be existing before existing. Okay, so that is a logical impossibility. So you can dismiss that, right? Or did you come out of nothing, which is also a logical impossibility, because nothingness, absolute nothingness, the absence of everything. You're not talking about quantum vacuum or whatever, right? The absence of everything, right, gives rise to nothing. Right? So nothing leads to nothing. So that can also be dismissed, right? Or did you, if you look at the universe around you, so did you create it, right? So we did not create it, right? We did not create ourselves, we did not create the universe, and the things that we see around the world are contingent, they are dependent, they are created. So the logical conclusion is that there has to be a creator, right? There has to be a sustainer and a creator who has created the universe, who has created ourselves, and who sustains the universe, also us. This is a Quranic argument, and I find that this argument is very successful against most people, right? Unless you are a philosopher, then you are a skeptic. And that is a different ballgame, right? But for most people who are more inclined, who have not had their fitra corrupted as much as the other people, right? So as much as those skeptics, then most of them, they agree that, okay, it is highly likely there's a sustainer, there's a designer behind the things that we see around us and also ourselves. Okay. So now after that, we move on to why only one God? Why not Hinduism, let's say 100,000 gods, or maybe 3 gods, or 4 gods, or 5 gods? Why one God? So what would you say? Why monotheism is the truth?
First, like there are like gods for like it's not a green god of fire, god of earth,
Mhm.
death god of
Yes.
earth. If we are calling something the word god, then looking for the two gods, the definition of what is it?
Excellent. Very good. So what is the definition of God?
Like something is control and like
Excellent. Yeah, very good. Very good. So we can also refer to the Quran. In the Quran it is mentioned, the argument is given, which is the ayah is oops. I believe it there. Sorry. I did not paste it properly. Okay. لو كانت فيهما آلهة إلا الله لفسدتا. Okay, so this is the Quran, which means that had there been gods beside Allah, right? Had there been many gods beside Allah, had there been any god beside Allah, then there surely would have been a fasad. Fasad means corruption, means that they would so surely have destroyed each other, right? Ruined each other. So how is it possible that there can be more than one ultimate will? So if you are defining the God as the ultimate will, the creator, then how can they be more than one ultimate will? So let's say one will wants to go against the other will. So then who is going to overpower who? If let's say one overpowers the other, then that is the God, not the other one. If let's say both of them are in sync, then they have one will. Okay, so that also entails one God. Okay, so if there's one will, there's one God. So whichever way you look at it, so there can only be one God possible because the order that we see around the universe, right? It necessitates that there's only one God which is in charge of the order of the universe. If there would have been more than one God, then there would certainly would have been chaos instead of the order that we see. Okay? And also because by the definition of God that we said, that they can only be one ultimate, one supreme being, one perfect being. So they cannot be two supreme perfect beings. If there are two supreme perfect beings, then whose will is more dominant over the other? It's not possible. So therefore, by logic as well, we can derive that they can only be one God. Now, let's say an agnostic believes, okay, possible, one God, there is a God, one God, right? But why your religion? Why revelation? Why your religion? Why do I believe in Islam? What are you going to offer me that will make me believe in Islam? You believe Islam is the truth, right? So why do you believe it?
Al-Ma'idah,
Sorry?
there's the verse.
Sorry?
Al-Ma'idah, for the verse. I believe that your religion is.
Yeah, but I'm an agnostic. I don't know what completely your religion means. So what will you say to me? Why do you think Islam is the truth? I do not believe in any religion.
I think you will have to ask the question again.
Should I repeat it?
A little. Yeah.
Okay, so we discussed about how back in the days, everyone used to believe in religion. So most of the discussions would be theological discussions. People used to believe in God, people used to call gods, or people used to believe in religion. So therefore, the discussions would more be about which religion is the true religion. So now, after the Enlightenment era, after skepticism and questioning of the ideas of religion, of God, so therefore there is a prevalence of agnosticism and atheism and skepticism, and therefore now the shift has changed from the discussion about theology to discussion about philosophy of religion. So I've titled my slide bottom up because previously it was more a top-down approach. Okay? So the general rule was that everyone believed in religion, everyone believed in God, right? Most, if not all of the humanity believed in religion and God, right? Now, the general rule is that most of the people, they either don't believe in God, or even if they believe in God, they don't care about it. Okay? So what we have to do right now, the necessary part of it, right? The discussion that we have to hold right now, is that we are compelled to hold right now is that why, right? First of all, we have to establish why there has to be a God, right? There cannot be any other way. And then why monotheism, right? Why only one God? And then we move on to why Islam is the true religion. So if anyone of you who have joined agnostic and you want to, if you want to tell me why God exists, so what will you say?
Something. Because every person owns something. For example, this computer operation, somebody have an inventor of this. For example, it's made by something else, actually made by something else. The brand name is owned by. And nobody in this world can tell us, okay, this I made mountains, I made water like
Very
this.
good. Right? So this is the Quranic ayat. I will mention. So in the Quran it says, "Am khuluqu min ghayri shay, am humul khaliqun," which means that was they created from nothing, ghayri shay, nothing, or did they create themselves? Am khalaqu samawati wal ard, that is what you said, or did they create the heavens and the earth, right, and everything in between? But la yuqin, they do not have yaqeen, they only speculate. So the Quranic argument is that either the human being they came out of nothing, the universe came out of nothing, or they themselves created. So either human beings they came out of nothing, or human beings created themselves, which is not, both of them are not possible. Right? Nothing can come out of nothing, and human beings have to exist and not exist at the same time in order to create themselves. They are not possible, right? And the universe also, if we apply that to universe, so the universe also has a creator. Why? Because the universe cannot create itself, and it cannot come out of nothing. So the only possible conclusion is that there is a creator of the universe and also of the human beings. Now, most of the agnostics or the atheists that we encounter, they are very convinced by this Quranic argument. It is very powerful. And then the next logical question would be that, okay, I believe that there is God or gods. So why do I have to believe in monotheism? Why only one God? Why not more than one God? Why not 2, 3, 4, 1,000, 100,000? Why only one God?
There is another Quranic argument against that. Had there been more than one God, there would have been disagreements between them and then everything would be chaos.
Yes, very good. So the Quranic arguments. Yeah. لو كان فيهما آلهة إلا الله لفسدتا. So had there been more than one God, had there been other gods beside Allah, right, they would certainly have been ruined, right? So which means that the order that we see in the universe, it would not be present, because by definition, God is the ultimate, the supreme, and there cannot be more than two supremes, more than one supreme, more than one ultimate. Because if let's say there are 2 or 3 supreme or 2 or 3 ultimates, then whose will is going to overpower the other? Let's say one God says do X, the other God says no, do Y. Then who's going to prevail over who? So if let's say one prevails over the other, then that one that prevails is the God. So therefore you only have one God still. And if let's say both of them are in sync, both of them have the same will, then also you have got one will, therefore one God. So they can only logically possible that we see in the universe, we can logically infer that they can only be one God. So this is also a Quranic. Now, okay, I believe there is one God, there is a God, there is one God. But why Islam? Why do I have to believe in a religion? Why do I have to believe in Islam? What are you going to give me that is going to convince me that Islam is true?
Every religion have a different type of things. That is not proved by the science. If you see, that is not proved by science. Or the existence of man, they started from the lot of blood, and a lot of science and other theories also.
Science or science?
Science.
SCIENC science. Okay.
There are a lot of things are in the Quran which I have described already, and science literally proved it.
So what about the theory of evolution? Science says that man has been, there is one common ancestor, and the ancestor of man is primate or chimp or whatever, right? So what would you say the Quran disagrees with? The Quran disagrees with science.
But the basic you know, if this is another religious to the this one, and maybe agnostic can say this is the, all the things. If you like this, they say that they can also say that the existence of the world also created of just like a Big Bang theory. There are a lot of things are there, but the thing this is not related to. A lot of things are there. For example,
for the movement, the shape of the earth is also explained in Quran, and later science proved it.
How? How is the shape of the earth?
It's oval shape like this one, or circular, then first like wavy. In this diagram, we can say that this is the elliptical shape, and also the movement of the stars and other things, which later science proved it. For example, the movement of stars, the star, moon also in the Quran.
Okay, so I'm a skeptic, right? So I said, okay, there were many things in the Quran that do conform to science, no problem. But there are some things in the Quran that are completely against science as well, right? So, such as the evolution theory, it is against science. And there are, let's say the Quran says there are 7 heavens. So where are the 7 heavens? Science does not prove that there are 7 heavens. So there are many things in the Quran that are against science, right? Let's say the theory of evolution, or there are things that the science cannot prove. So how would I?
There's also the issue that science agrees with a lot of other cultures, like ancient Egypt figured out the earth, shape of the earth.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it was, these things were there before the Quran as well. So if let's say I'm a skeptic, I do not. I say, okay. I mean, there are many things that conform to science, but then there are some things that don't conform. And even if there are many things that conform, they were also present before Islam. So they were also known before Islam. They were not common, but they were theories which were there. So what would you say to that? How would you prove that Islam is the truth? We'll discuss that. Yeah. Okay. You can say that.
You can't really see this, like the theory of evolution. This is theory, it's prove it, like, yeah, it's correct. And for other theories as well, like,
Yeah. Very
but
good.
you can see like the practical science that we have, that most of them are like in sync, like this word as well.
Yeah.
Actually, it's like a fine line between.
Yeah, but my argument is that okay, there are some things in the Quran that conform to science. Okay, let's say the shape of the earth. Even though I would argue that the shape of the earth in the Quran, it is given that it is just like a ball, right? So like that. So it is there. You can infer that the shape of the earth is like a ball from the Quranic words, and also the movement of the stars. But they were also known before Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, so any skeptic can say, okay, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam got it from the Greeks or the Egyptians. So then, what will you say?
Animal stories, they also, for example, maybe before that, I don't know this. For example, they are taking the other things also. Distance, for example, how the baby grows. Baby growth from sperm to the human being. This is also this was not before. This is also another proof of 1400 period. There was no science from that time. People don't know that this something that is happening there.
The science of the development of the embryo is a bit inconclusive. I mean, there are many things that are conclusive, but then it does contradict the Quran in some aspects, which we are not going to there. But there are some things in the Quran which do not conform to some of the theories in embryology. So that cannot be a valid.
The simple answer should be that if they are accept this, okay, there is one God. Who told us? Quran told us there is one God.
Yeah.
So if they are agreeing on this, they okay, we accept there is one God. There is not some gods. They come to this first point. So I think we can tell them that this Quran, this Islam told us.
Jews also believe in one God. So why not do this?
What not? Their beliefs maybe different. We
Judaism as an entry fee.
yeah.
Okay, there are many. When the Christians they went to Native America and they started trying to convert them to Christianity, right? They were astonished that some of the tribes also believed in God. So why not their tribal religion? Why not? Why Islam?
Maybe
Yeah.
Maybe the like for example, it's like sort of daily, but so what's have a friend like had a bad day. Even if you're not right, at least it's not that right.
Yeah.
Like that's my actually benefit about and like he will fix about it, even if part of it he will fix about it.
Yeah. But yeah, I know. Yeah, last part, right? The Adar and the Akhlaq. But they are present in almost all religions. If you look at many religions, they also have these concepts.
so
Islam is the most comprehensive, no doubt, but I'm an agnostic. I don't know about Islam.
So think that Islam is the only truth. We need to look at the one true God has communicated with us. So by the prophets.
Very good, very good. So you prove by revelations, right? So you have to prove that the Quran is the word of God. Okay, and you can prove that Quran is the word of God through the structure of the Quran, right? Through some of the, as you can say, some of the things that conform with science as well. You can do that as well, and also through the you can say the stories of the prophets that are there in the Quran, which also conform to history. There are many things in the Quran that are miraculous. So you can give the miraculous nature of the Quran as one of the proofs as to why Islam is the truth. And the linguistic as well. Linguistic and structural, that's what I said. Yeah.
I think the main thing is once a person has reached that too much, once he accepts that it is possible to apply Islam, basically he just needs to understand that Islam is the paradigm which doesn't contradict itself.
Sorry,
Islam is a paradigm
yeah,
which doesn't contradict itself.
yeah,
Other religions, that's just the same thing.
yes, very good. Right. So in the Quran, you have got a falsification test. So the Quran says that if this is from anything other than God, it will have many contradictions and errors within it. So you can prove that the theology, right, the tawheed of Islam and the creed that Islam presents does not contradict reason. You can prove that as well. For example, in Judaism, there is a concept of, you also said that it is not a proselytizing religion, so it is not a universal religion. And also there's a concept of, let's say, arguing against God. So if God is the all supreme, all knowing, then how can you, a limited human being, argue against God? So that is something which goes against logic, that you are arguing against God when you are a limited human being and God is the unlimited, all knowing being. And also from history as well, we can prove that there are many changes to the Jewish scripture. So I have just mentioned a few reasons as to why, because there's no mathematics. It's not like mathematics that 1 + 1 is always going to be equal to 2, right? So you're not going to prove Islam like this, that 5, just like 5 + 5 = 10. Therefore, A equals truth, B equals to Islam, and A equals to truth and B equals to Islam. Therefore, it is the truth, right? So you cannot make them like that. Therefore, you have to supplement a lot of different things. So I've mentioned these things. So revelation, number 1, the Quran, the miraculous nature of the Quran, and also the challenge of the Quran, the immutability challenge of the Quran, and also the challenge to prove that the Quran is contradictory, which nobody can make. And then reason as well, that the tawheed of the Quran, the aqidah of the Quran, the aqidah of Islam, it conforms with reason. And the things which Islam recommend, because they also conform with reason. And then historicity. So we can reliably say that the Quran and the Hadith they have been preserved, whereas you cannot say that for other scriptures. So historicity. So if, let's say, there is corruption in scripture, then that scripture automatically becomes invalid. So the Christian scripture. Yeah.
Actually, so what should be the response for? What's the correct response for the different qira'at?
That is a very controversial subject. So, yeah, so Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, there were different qira'ats in which the Quran was revealed. That's what admit.
Somebody
So he's the one, right? So there were qira'at in which the Quran was revealed, and those qira'at were there in order for the Arabs, because the Arabs used to speak different dialects of Arabic. Okay? So therefore, the Quran was revealed in different dialects for different people, for the Arabs to absorb the message of the Quran easily. Let's say if I am speaking a different dialect of Arabic and I don't know the Qurayshi dialect, so it's going to be difficult for me to know the language of the Quran and to implement it. And the Arabs were the primary audience. They had to understand the Quran in order to spread it. And they were given the task to spread it. So therefore, the Quran was revealed in different qira'at in order for the Arabs to understand it properly, which many people don't know. So,
wait, so it was revealed.
and it was revealed in different qira'at.
So the Prophet ﷺ himself said it in different ways.
Himself said it in different ways. Yes, he himself said it.
So I think
There's a study for that.
Okay. Yeah. There is a sanad for every Quran. Yes. Yeah, correct.
I think they are all written, they basically have the same skeleton. So that's
Maybe culture to culture are also varied because different countries have a different talk, even accent varies. If you go to Arabic, if you speak English, different way.
Yeah.
If you go to America, England, there is also some difference.
Yeah. There is let's say one word, right? It is spoken differently in some other dialect. It's would ask to repeat for that dialect. So yeah, there are a few different qira'ats in which the Quran was revealed, and then those 7 qira'ats, and during the time of Usman it was standardized to one. That is why we have one. So yeah, there are different ways in which we can prove that Islam is the truth. So there's no one formula. So and another one after historicity would be the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which we discussed in length during our Sira series. So if you don't know, you have to go and watch it on YouTube. And also in the prophethood also comes the prophecies of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is the miracle in itself. So there are many prophecies that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam made. There were many prophecies that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam made, which came true. And there are some prophecies which will come true, right? Which we believe which are going to come true in the future. And then finally, which we are going to discuss about the 2 things which we are going to discuss today are the applicability of Islam, that Islam was revealed 1400 years ago, more than 1400 years ago, and is still in Arabia, which was the backwaters of civilization. So the Arabs were not known as a civilization. They were just tribes, different tribes living with each other and fighting against each other. So a religion that was revealed 1450 years ago is as applicable today as it was 1450 years ago. So as you can see, we discussed about modernity, postmodernity. There were so many problems, even though lots of philosophers came up with these ideas, lots of very brilliant minds as well. But still, with the things that they came up with, there were so many problems that they constantly had to update the software. Okay, and still, if you see right now, 5 years ago we had something else, we believed in something else. Right now we believe in something else. Not we as Muslims, but the world, the modern world, the postmodern and the modern world. 5 years afterward, they believe in something else. So they are constantly trying to put patches in the faulty software that they came up with. Whereas Islam, that was revealed 1450 years ago, is as applicable today as it was 1450 years ago. And it was revealed in Arabia. It was not revealed in any civilized, so-called, quote-unquote, civilized nations such as Persia or Rome. Okay. So therefore, this is a conclusive proof that Islam is the truth. And then finally, and very importantly, is the instinct. The natural instinct, which we call a fitra. Fitra is the natural instinct, the natural receptivity towards God's message, which we'll discuss it later as well. So now there are 2 things that I've mentioned here, which is going to attract a modern and a postmodern. So modern would say reason. So you said that Islam conforms to reason. Then modernism also believes that people who subscribe to modernism, they also believe that reason is the ultimate. Okay. Through reason, we can reach the truth. That is what they believe in. So now a modern person, let's say if I'm a agnostic and I'm a modern person as well, and I've been told that Islam conforms to reason, but then I would say, okay, maybe there are many things many things in reason that Islam does not conform to, right? So let's say the theory of evolution. Okay. So the theory of evolution is a part of science, which is reason, right? Which is inductive reasoning. So Islam does not conform with it. So you said that Islam conforms with reason, but now I'm bringing you that examples that Islam does not conform with reason. So what will you say to that?
So first of all, I just want to take a step back.
Yes.
And say, does Islam say no to evolution, or it does say no?
It does say nothing about it, but it does, in the Quran, it is mentioned that Adam alayhi salam was created by Allah, right? And was fashioned by Allah.
Okay.
So evolution basically, if you look at the theory of evolution, then it starts with the creation of a self-replicating cell, which created out of randomness. So this is something which Islam is going to reject. That randomness is what gave this atom, the property to become a cell. So that outright is outside the fold of Islam, because you cannot say that randomness is what gave origin to life. Allah gave origin to life, not randomness.
Yes, but then that's part of the right?
Answer the question.
What? Yeah.
How can you reason this answer?
Yeah. Okay. So what is the? How can you maybe articulate it?
We tell the person who wants to understand the reason. Say that evolution is not.
Yeah.
How can someone come from what?
Yes, very good. So you can say that the assumptions that you have made, okay, in coming up to a reason. Okay, so you say that this is the reason, right? But within that reason, you have got certain assumptions. In order to come to a conclusion, you have certain assumptions. So you can say those assumptions are not based upon something that's conclusive, which we'll discuss about, inshallah, in the next step. And then a postmodern would say instinct. You said instinct, natural instinct. So my natural instinct is to do whatever I want, right? So let's say postmodern would say that. So what would your answer be to that natural instinct? That Islam performs natural instinct.
I guess that the argument would be that Islam doesn't conform exactly to instinct. Islam is a set of moral codes, I guess, that we follow against instinct. We have Ramadan, that's completely against instinct. Human wants to keep, Islam said only. So I guess we can, for a postmodernist, we can argue about how humans are naturally destructive. Their instincts are naturally destructive, and how Islam tries to bring a balance to all of that, I guess.
Okay, yeah, let's just discuss. So okay, so about 700 years ago, there was a Muslim theologian by the name of Ibn Taymiyyah, and he gave a very practical solution as to what we should do when we have a perceived conflict between reason and revelation. And that solution is as applicable today as it was 700 years ago. Very practical and very pertinent. So now Ibn Taymiyyah, then this is again a simplified version. So Ibn Taymiyyah then divided the rational proof into two. One is conclusive, qat'i, and the other is inconclusive, dhanni. So qat'i rational proof would be, let's say, all human beings are mortal. So that is a rational proof or empirical proof that is qat'i. Okay, nobody can say that I've seen a human being who has been immortal, who has lived forever. Okay? And then an inconclusive proof would be an inconclusive rational proof would be, let's say, scientific theory. Right? So that would be inconclusive because it can change in the future as well. So let's say Newton. Let me give you an example. Newton's theory, Newton's law of gravitation, was considered to be absolute. Okay, this is the truth, the scientists would say. But then there were some problems. There were some recalcitrant facts that did not fit into the Newton's theory of gravitation. So therefore, another scientist called Einstein had to give his own theory of relativity, which then the basic assumptions of the theory of relativity, they contradict the theory of Newton. So if Einstein is right, then Newton is wrong. Okay. So therefore, the scientific theories that we have, they would form into the domain of inconclusive, because they are based on their rational inference to the empirical observations. And that rational inference to empirical observations can be wrong. It can be proven wrong if we find future observations that contradict the observations that we made prior. So just like the example that we gave, that the future observations that we made with the advanced equipment that we had, they did not conform to the theory of gravitation that we gave. Okay. Then Einstein has to come and to explain, give a new paradigm, which is called the theory of relativity. And that theory of relativity can fit into the old data that was observed previously and also the new data. Okay, so then it became the new paradigm of science. That okay, the theory of gravitation of Newton has been replaced by the theory of relativity of Einstein. And then the scriptural proof can also be conclusive and inconclusive. Okay, so the conclusive proof would be the Sahih Hadith and the Quran. They are conclusive proof. And the inconclusive dhanni, the scriptural proof can be, the example can be the hadith. So they are the models that fabricated hadith. So these are the hadith would be the dhanni. Okay, the inconclusive scriptural evidence. So then now we have divided the rational proof into two, conclusive and conclusive, and also the scriptural proof into two as well, conclusive and conclusive. So his main thesis is that reason and revelation, they cannot sound reason, the conclusive reason and conclusive revelation, they can never contradict with each other. Why? Because both of them are from God. And therefore, if God has revealed scripture and God has given us reason, then therefore sound reason, right, and sound revelation, they can never contradict each other. Okay. And then what happens if, let's say, there's a perceived contradiction between reason and revelation? So this is the table that he can, not Ibn Taymiyyah, but from Ibn Taymiyyah's writings, we can derive this, that let's say if we have rational proof here, and then we have scriptural proof at the bottom, okay? And then let's say if both of them are qat'i, both of them are conclusive, then both of them have to by necessity. So because contradiction cannot exist, if both of them are from God, then they both have to agree with each other. Okay? So let's say if both of them disagree with each other, then what do? Then we look at the merits of the rational proof and the merit of the scriptural proof, and then conclude. So now let's say we looked at the scriptural proof and we came to a conclusion that the scripture is one, it is maybe a daif hadith. Let me give you an example. That let's say there's a daif hadith, I'm just making it up. Okay. Let's say, for argument's sake, there's a daif hadith which says that the earth is flat. Okay. And we have got conclusive empirical evidence that the earth is round. So now we have got a scenario in which we have got zanni scriptural evidence and a conclusive rational evidence. Okay. So Ibn Taymiyyah says that conclusive rational proof takes precedence over inconclusive scriptural proof. Therefore, we can say that okay, maybe there may be something wrong with this hadith. Maybe this is not said by Muhammad, or it was not transmitted properly. So therefore, we are going to prefer the rational proof, the conclusive rational proof, over the zanni scriptural proof. Okay. And then if, let's say, the scriptural proof is qat'i, okay, it is from the Quran, from the hadith, and then the rational proof is done, it is inconclusive. So let's say, I've just said the theory of evolution, we can come up with other theories as well. Let me give you another example. So scientists before Thomas Taman, I think his name. So before him, before the Big Bang theory, they used to believe in the steady state theory, which said that the universe is just steady, it's steady, it's not expanding. And it has been here forever. Okay, the universe is infinite, and it has always been there. It's not expanding. Whereas in the Quran, Allah is the originator of the universe. So now the Quran is contradicting with what the scientists say, what one particular theory scientists say. Okay. So now you have got an inconclusive scientific theory that the universe is static, it is steady, it does not change, and you have got conclusive Quranic evidence that Allah is the one who originated the universe. Okay. So now you have got the clash, an apparent clash between the two. Okay. Now what would you do? So Ibn Taymiyyah says in this scenario, we are going to prefer conclusive scriptural proof takes precedence over inconclusive rational. So whenever we have a zanni and speculative rational proof and a scriptural proof which is qat'i, which is conclusive, then we should prefer the qat'i, the conclusive scriptural proof over a zanni and inconclusive rational proof. And then finally, if both of them are zanni, okay, both of them, let's say you've got a daif hadith, and then you have got a scientific theory, and they're both, you can say, contradicting each other. So what you do, you take it on a case-by-case basis. The stronger of the two inconclusive proofs takes precedence over the weak. So let's say the rational proof, it has got more evidence, and then you have got a hadith which is on a lower level of daif, okay, or maybe a fabricated hadith, then you are going to prefer the rational proof over the fabricated hadith. Okay. And let's say you've got a daif hadith which is very close to Hasan, okay, and then you've got a scientific theory which is, you can say, not very well accepted, which does not have a lot of evidence. So you are going to the ulama, not us. Of course, this is for the ulama. All of this paradigm is not for us. This is for the ulama. Okay. But this is just to demonstrate that we have an usul principles on which we can decide whether to prefer reason or revelation. Okay. So we have this in our tradition, because we had problems in our tradition which came due to Greek philosophy. It's a long history. So therefore, these paradigms, these usul have had to be, these principles had to be established. So now the stronger of the two inconclusive proofs takes precedence of the weak. So now this is the scholars who are going to look whether the scriptural proof is more conclusive or the rational proof is more conclusive. And then they are going to come with a decision whether, and of course there can be some differences in that decision, but then it is up to the scholars to determine which of the two proofs takes precedence of the other. Okay. So these principles of reconciling reason with revelation are still present in our tradition, and they're very practical. And this was given by Damien. So we have discussed, so we can give this paradigm to anyone who is agnostic or skeptic, that since both reason and revelation, they come from Allah, they come from God, therefore they cannot contradict each other. If there's something wrong, if there's a contradiction, then we have to check, right? And if the scripture is and if the rational argument is done, then we have to look at the assumptions of the rational argument. Okay? So the steady state theory, its assumptions were that the universe is as it is, will forever be right. So will forever be it's unchanged. So that was the assumption. So you have to question that assumption. Who told you that the universe is unchanged? So that is an assumption upon which we have built that faith. Okay? So therefore, we can question the assumption of the inconclusive non-evidence. And then finally, let's go to instincts. Okay, now we have a postmodern person who says, okay, my instincts are guiding me towards towards LKF. Okay, sorry to say that, but my instincts are guiding me towards dancing and singing or whatever, right? So now you said that instincts guide towards God, guide towards Islam, but my instincts tell me something else. So the Islam theologians have also come up with the answer. And I'm going to briefly describe it. Of course, I promise that it's not going to be a very difficult session. So now the natural instinct that we are talking about is the fitrah. And Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that Muhammad in his famous hadith said, anyone would like to translate it for me? Translate this hadith for me? Who comes in your Arabic class?
None of the people.
Oh my God. I was about to test someone. Oh, no. Anyone can try to translate? Kullu, all, right?
This was
Yes,
basically every human being, or you can say insan, is basically a Muslim by fitra, but their parents can make them Yehudo and Nasrani and religion, because they can make it, they train them and they become.
So the mother gives birth to all human beings on the fitrah. So this is what the hadith says. And then the parents then convert them into a Jew or a Christian or a Majus. Majus is the Zoroastrian religion. Okay. So Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in his hadith said that there is a natural instinct on which every human being is born into. And that natural instinct, we can describe it as a receptivity towards the religion of Islam, a receptivity towards the truth. So this natural instinct is then corrupted by the outside influence. The parents, they are the first influence. Right now, in this day and age, it's not the parents, it's the social media or the school or whatever, right? So the parents are no longer under control. It's the other things, the technology that is under control, right? So the parent that we have in this day and age is the technology. So now the technology, the schools, they are the ones who then insert other ideas, and they are the ones who corrupt the fitrah. So this is what Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said. So there is an interesting, so I've put in the brackets, I've put in Islamic nurture versus Christian nature. So in Christianity, the assumption is that human beings are born evil. So there's the idea of original sin, and the assumption is that human beings are born evil. Whereas in the Quran, yes, in the Quran and the Hadith, the Muhammad tells us that human beings are born pure, right? They are born innocent, and then later they become corrupt. So this notion of human beings are born evil has plagued Europe, right? If you look at the Christian era, many of the philosophies that came up during Christian era, and then also Enlightenment, okay? Because Enlightenment and modernity came out of Christian womb. It either took a lot of values from Christianity, or it was responding to Christianity. Okay? So it is born out of a Christian womb. So a lot of philosophies that came out of Europe of the Enlightenment era, they were highly influenced by the argument of Christianity that human beings are born immoral. Okay? And therefore you have to somehow control them and make them right, force them into morality. Whereas Islam says that human beings are born moral and then they become corrupted, but they always have the chance to go back to their original state. So now there were some interesting experiments also done in the past 10, 15 years that prove that fitra, okay, that there is something as a natural position towards believing in God. There was a study done, 1.9 million pounds, that this was in Oxford University. So it is a premier university in the world. 1.9 million pounds project involved 57 researchers who conducted over 40 separate studies in 20 countries, okay, representing a diverse range of cultures. These studies, both analytical and empirical, conclude that humans are predisposed to believe in God and an afterlife. So they conducted these studies on children, and then the children, they asked them whether you believe in God. They said, yes, we believe in God. So they were receptive toward believing in God. And they also believed in an afterlife. They also said that there's a life after death as well. And they also did not believe in a human God. So let's say people say, so the question I would ask them is God human? Is he a beard? Is he a guy with a beard looking at the sky? They would say it's not a human. So they had a receptivity towards the message of Islam, which is that that Allah is not like any other humans, any of his creation. And also Allah is in control of everything. And there is going to be an afterlife in which everyone is going to be judged. And there are other things as well which come as part of the fitrah which we can establish. For example, we have a natural receptivity towards cleanliness. Okay, so when we look at something clean, all of us, we gravitate towards it. Whereas if there's something filthy, let's say there's blood or there's urine or something like that, we'll be naturally gravitate away from it. We'll not naturally go against it. So these are some of the things that are present in the fitrah. And Muhammad Sallallahu also in a study said that cutting the hair, cutting the nails, they are from the fitrah. So we have from this study we can also derive that we have a natural receptivity towards cleanliness as well. Okay. So now this fitrah is what we're talking about when we talk about natural instincts. And then the natural instincts, they become corrupted by the outside influences. And in Islam, we also have the concept of nafs. So the instinct that we were talking about was the nafs. So nafs can be said as the soul, if you can say that it is the soul. And it can also be described as the base desires of human being, which are required in order to survive. Let's say the desire to eat, to drink, to enjoy, to reproduce. So these are the desires that we have. But then these desires can go out of control. And then if a postmodern comes and says that these are the desires that I have, these are the instincts that I have, we come to say that we have been overcome by our nafs. So you have got a receptivity towards the truth, which is the fitrah, and you're born upon the fitrah. Okay? And then you have the nafs. Because of the environment which allows you to express your nafs, to let it go out of control and encourages you to let it go out of control, your fitrah has become corrupted and the overpowering force of the nafs has overtaken. And that is what we're calling instinct. And that instinct is something that we have to control and that we do not have to manifest. So now this again comes the question, right? So who is going to decide which instinct is the one that we have to control and which instinct we don't have to control? So that is why,
Sorry, it's not related to the question, but just something I picked up somewhere, maybe. If nafs, what you do, we should call it instinct.
Yeah, fitra is also a natural instinct or natural receptivity, predisposition, right? Predisposition. Nafs can be soul, can be self, it can also be basic desires, right? Just as I said, basic desires.
It's just that there's
Yeah.
maybe differentiating.
Yeah. I think. Yeah. Thank you for the
Just add for the
Yeah.
nafs. Yeah. Nafs is actually binary.
Yeah.
Okay. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says, "وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا." That doesn't mean that nafs is basic desire.
Yeah.
Nafs itself is aspired for good. The nafs itself can inspire for good. So if you, for example, and this is true.
Is it that the nafs can aspire for good, or is it because that the nafs can be channeled in a good manner and a wrong manner?
Yes, so it's not the nafs. Nafs has different modes.
Yeah,
It can take
you are
different
right.
modes. Yeah.
Right. So it can be expressed in a good manner and a wrong manner. Okay. So that I was about to come.
Okay.
So you have these desires that you have, and they can be expressed in a halal manner. So you eat, you drink, you drink the right things, you eat the right things.
Right.
So that is the nafs being expressed in a halal, in a desirable manner. And then you have got, when you let your nafs go out of control, then it controls you instead of you controlling the nafs. Then it becomes something that is undesirable.
Because there's also, there's also the ayah that says, "Ya ayyatuha an-nafs al-mutma'inna."
Yeah.
So nafs can be in a peaceful.
Yeah,
state as well.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, that is where the role of revelation comes. So what is going to guide us? What do we have to do? How we have to control our nafs? Where we have to channel our desire? So therefore, revelation is going to be the final arbiter, the final judge upon what is moral and what is not moral. So anyone who says, "Oh, we don't need revelation, we can come to these things on our own," right? So this is completely, this is ahistorical. This is ahistorical, and this is against reason as well. Because we need revelation to arbitrate between what is right and what is wrong. Otherwise, we won't know which of the forces, which of the instincts that we feel are the right instincts or the wrong instincts, or if the instincts that we feel, how to channel them in a proper way. Okay? So therefore, the revelation has the authority over morality. It's not going to be our reason. It's not going to be our basic desires or the nafs. It is going to be revelation, which is going to be the final arbiter over what is moral and what is immoral. Without revelation, we won't have morality. So all of these enlightenment philosophers and all of the people who say that, okay, we don't need revelation, they got all of their principles from revelation. Don't eat, don't kill, don't cheat, don't steal, right? All of these are part of 10 commandments. So they're like that kid, which spoiled kid, right? It borrows the money from the parents, it says, I hate. So they borrow a lot of things from the religion, and then they're like, I hate. Okay. Okay, so now finally we discussed modernism, postmodernism, and then now let's look at Islam. So modernism removes religion and says that man, human beings, human reason is going to be the measure of all things. Okay, and postmodernism says that it's not going to be reason; it's going to be human beings. Islam is a theocentric religion, a God-centric religion. Everything we attribute, we do it for the sake of Allah. Okay, so therefore, Allah is the measure of all. Allah is going to define what is right, what is wrong, and Allah is the lawgiver. It's not the human beings who do it. Okay, and that is the one that makes most sense as well, because we discussed that reason has its limitations. And I did not discuss that one. Sorry, have we discussed one? Okay. So as I said, when I was talking about Ibn Taymiyyah, okay. So now Ibn Taymiyyah also made one very important contribution, which I'm going to discuss. That Ibn Taymiyyah also said that there is a limit to reason. So what is that limit to reason? So we were discussing about what we are going to do when there is an apparent contradiction between reason and revelation. So then Ibn Taymiyyah said that, okay, you have got reason and you've got revelation. You engage, human beings are rational animals, they engage in reason, and they also take their guidance from revelation. So if there is an apparent clash, you can solve it using this paradigm. But then there are some people who go beyond what reason is supposed to be. And then they ascribe it to reason, and then they say there's a conflict between reason and revelation, and therefore we must ascribe to reason. Let me give you an example. There were the there was a group in early Islam that were called the Falasif, or the philosophers. Okay? And you had Ibn Sina and Farabi and these people. So they would say that God does not know the particulars, which means that God does not know that you are going to die that day, or let's say you are going to shake your umbrella right now, right? God is not going to know that. God is just going to know the essence of you there. God is just not going to know the essence means the overall existence of you, overall essence. I mean, how to describe essence? But let's say God is going to know overall picture of the thing, but He's not going to know the specifics. Okay, so that is what they used to say, and it goes against the Quran the Quran says that not a leaf falls except God knows about it.
This is actually Ibn Sina al-Farad.
Yes.
Surprising.
Yeah. So the Falasif then came to this conclusion based on the Aristotelian paradigm. And then Ibn Taymiyyah challenged that Aristotelian paradigm and said that the assumptions of the Aristotelian paradigm were wrong. And then he said that there is a limit to reason and we should not go beyond that limit, otherwise we will fall astray. So what was he saying? What he said was that the role of reason, the role of our intellect, of our aql is that we reach the truth using the aql. Now, once we have reached the truth using the aql, then we do not, then the role of the reason is not debating the truth. It is about interpreting the truth. Okay. So now let's say if an example would be, let's say if the authority is the doctor. Okay. Now I go to the doctor. Okay, I do my due diligence, who is the best doctor, whatever, right? So I find out that, okay, with all evidence that I have, this person is the best doctor. Okay. Now I go to that doctor. Now the doctor tells me, okay, at 6 o'clock, you have to eat this. Now I'm not going to debate with him. Okay, why 6? Why not 7? Why not 6:30? Why not? Yeah, the doctor says, take it with water. Okay, I'm not going to debate with him. Why not with milk? I like sparkled water. I like apple juice. I should take it with apple juice. I'm going to accept whatever the doctor is going to give me because the doctor is the authority. I have used my reason in order to come to a conclusion that this is the best doctor. Okay, and I went to the best doctor, and then I'm going to accept what the doctor is going to give me, and I'm not going to question it. Okay, so Ibn Taymiyyah said that this is the role of reason. That reason is used to reach the truth. Okay, so you use your reason. So you use that, and then afterwards you look at the Quran and the Hadith. You look at the miraculous nature, and then you come to the conclusion that Islam is the truth. And then once you reach the conclusion that Islam is the truth, then you do not debate about the conclusion, the Qadri scriptural proofs. Okay, you do not start debating about whether Allah knows the particulars or not, whether Allah knows whether He falls or not. Okay, so just like the philosophers, they use the assumptions of Aristotelian logic to reject many of the verses of the Quran or to interpret it in a radically, extremely different way. Therefore, that, according to Ibn Taymiyyah, according to mainstream Islam, is unacceptable. Okay. And therefore, Ibn Taymiyyah would say that they have gone beyond what reason is supposed to do. And Ibn Taymiyyah also said that the reason is like the senses. You have your senses, just like the senses, the reason is also placed by Allah for a particular reason. So if, let's say, the senses are there in order to touch and feel, sense the temperature. Okay. Now I can feel this, I can feel this. I'm not going to go and put my hand into the fire because this is beyond my ability. I'm going to hurt myself, I'm going to hurt my skin. This is beyond what the senses are meant to be. Okay, this is beyond the capacity of the senses. So Ibn Taymiyyah says, similarly, like there are many things in the world which are beyond the capacity of the senses, therefore there are some things which are beyond the capacity of reason. So let's say I'm not going to go and say why 5 times a day, why not 6 times a day, why not 7? 3 times make more sense. Okay? Why do I have to wake up in the morning and offer the first? I have to accept it. As the revelation says, what Allah says, I have to accept the authority that Allah is the ultimate authority, and I don't have to challenge it. Now the role of the reason then after reaching the truth, the role of the reason becomes interpretation of the revelation rather than challenging the revelation. So with that, the now reason, modernism put reason above everything else, okay, and said that reason and science can provide objective truths. And then postmodernism came and said that no, there's no such thing as truth, which we discussed last time. Right? So they said that truth is relative. Right? You can have your truth, I can have my truth. Right? So there is no such thing as absolute truth. Now Islam says that, okay, so Islamic paradigm is that reality is understood by fitra. So modernism would say it's reason and empiricism, science. Okay, so you look at the things, sense perception and reason. Okay, these are the main ways in which you can gain knowledge. Postmodernism would come up and say that reason is inconclusive. Okay, so therefore you have to go with your feelings. Now Islam says that reality is understood by fitra. Okay, senses, hawas, so Islam also incorporates senses, then reason, the aql, and the reports, which is the reports will be testimony. Okay?
And then revelation. So Islam is a more holistic way of looking at things, much more holistic than either modernism or postmodernism. And then science reveals divine science. Science is not here to, so these Enlightenment era philosophers would say that through science you can reach objective truth. Okay, so now the scientific theory has become an objective truth. Now, a Muslim scientist, if he has bought into Islamic paradigm, he would say that, okay, scientific theories that I'm presenting, right, they can be closer to the truth. They are fitting the empirical evidence that we have. But at the end of the day, wallahu a'lam. Okay, so we have in our concept, we have this epistemic humility. That, okay, we are trying our best to understand the world around us. Okay, we have a data, and from that data, we try our best to reach a conclusion. But then at the end of the day, there can be other observances in the future which can contradict our conclusion, and it can change. Okay? So therefore, Islamic paradigm is that of humility, and Islam incorporates the entire nature of the fitra, the revelation, and also reason as well, which Enlightenment era philosophers also do, and senses as well. Islam incorporates that as well, and also testimony. Okay? So it is a more holistic epistemology rather than a very restricted and limited epistemology of modernism and postmodernism. And then, yeah, Islam also says that revelation is the muhaymin. So let's say there's a contradiction between reason. Okay, there is a reason is saying something else, right? And the conclusive evidence, the conclusive Quranic evidence is saying something else. Then the Quranic evidence is going to be the one which is going to be given preference. So the revelation of time is the keeper over the truths. So let's say if there's someone who claims that this is the truth, and revelation says something else, then we go with the revelation rather than someone else's claim that it's the truth. Okay. And also with senses as well, with instincts as well. So let's say if someone says that this is the moral thing to do, this is what my instincts tell me to do. So revelation is going to be the final arbiter of what is the right way to channel the instinct and what is the wrong way to channel the instinct, which we have already discussed. Now, language, the modernists would say that language can impart the knowledge of the objective world. Postmodernists would say that language is subjective. Okay, it is interpreted by everyone differently. And Islam is also somewhere in between. Okay, Islam is more balanced. Again, we will come up with this. We will repeatedly see that Islam is much more balanced, much more nuanced than any of these philosophies. So Islam says that language can impart meanings that transcend time, but Islam also does not dismiss the relative nature of the interpretation. Okay, but that interpretation has to be within certain boundaries. So as the Arabic teacher here knows that the Arabic language has been preserved for the past 1400 years. Okay, and then you have got in Arabic language, you've got what are the structures of Arabic language? What is the etymology called? Any idea? You have the tajweed, which is preserved as well, because we have got the pronunciation, which is preserved. You have got the sarf, I think it is sarf, right? Sarf, which is preserved as well, which is the morphology, if I'm not mistaken. That is the grammar. Okay, so the Arabic grammar is preserved. So the principles, the usul of the Arabic language, they define the parameters in which we can interpret the Quran. Okay, we cannot interpret the Quran or the Hadith however we like. And we have got the Sunnah, right? So we have got the Arabic language which is preserved, and also in order to guide us how to interpret the Quran, we have got the Sunnah. Okay, we have got the example of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam demonstrating how Quran has to be practically implemented in everyday life. So therefore, the Arabic language, the conservation of the Arabic language, and the conservation of the Sunnah is what defines the parameters in which we can interpret the Quran, okay, and the Hadith. And beyond those parameters, we cannot cross those parameters. So within those parameters, then there can be differences of opinion, which is Islam acknowledges. So there can be some sort of Sharia relativism. So relativism in the sense that one scholar can come up with slightly different interpretation than another scholar. So that is why you have got 4 different schools of thought, because there are some different methodologies of interpretation. Okay? So therefore, there are slightly different conclusions that the schools of thought comes to, that the different schools of thought come to in certain matters. So the Sharia Islam recognizes that there is some relativism which scholars can have, and it can be tolerated, but that relativism does not go beyond the boundaries which the Arabic language and the Sunnah of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the Quran itself says. Okay. And then the modernism says that human beings are progressing. Postmodernism says that there is no such thing as progress. So progressing means that human beings are becoming better scientifically, morally. We are more moral today than we were yesterday. We were more moral yesterday than we were day before yesterday.
And then
the modernist.
I have a lot.
Yeah. So in the hadith, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the Quran and the hadith as well, that there is a pattern that is defined that there is going to be a moral regression. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that the best of my generation, the best generation is my generation, then followed by the generation after, followed by the generation after. So there is going to be a moral regression. And you can also infer from the hadith, you can infer, right, that there is some things which do indicate that there is going to be technological progress. Okay, that human beings are going to become more and more technologically advanced. You can infer, but then the clear-cut evidence is that there is going to be a moral regression as the world moves on. Okay, as the time goes on from the death of Muhammad. And then the modernism, the main feature of modernism was that the law of nature that we discovered, the laws of nature that are discovered, they also apply to human beings. Okay. So you got disciplines like social sciences created, economics. Okay. So they decided the disciplines, they wanted to find out the laws of economics, find out the laws of how human beings cooperate with each other, and also find out the laws of morality as well, right? So you had consequentialism. So this was the theme of modernism. And postmodernism then comes up and says that there is no law of nature, it's just an interpretation. So therefore we have to go beyond this law of nature. And then Islam then comes up and says that there is a divine law which human beings have to adhere to. So human beings are not part of the law that is given by nature. Human beings have to adhere to the law that is given by Allah. Because at the end of the day, what is nature? So you can go into this argument that what is nature? Nature is the universe around it. But the universe, does it give human beings laws? Who says that nature gives human beings laws? The universe gives human beings laws. So it is going to be the divine guidance, the divine law, which is going to be the framework for human beings to reside. Okay. So human beings are bound to follow the divine law instead of any natural law which human beings have discovered themselves. And then finally, modernism says that freedom is democracy in free markets. Postmodernism says that freedom is getting away, removing all the meta narratives and seeing the world however we want. Okay? So basically the worship of the nafs. And then Islam says that true freedom lies in the ubudiyya, the slavery of God. So this is the Islamic paradigm. As famous philosopher Rousseau also said, that human beings are born free, but they're everywhere in fetters. Have you studied that at school? Human beings are born free, but they're everywhere in chains.
I studied the one that says human beings, mothers have given birth to free people. Men.
Yeah. And then everywhere they're in chains. Yeah. So this is what Rousseau said. So this is true that human beings, they are bound by the society, by the laws of the society, the government. When you go to the office, you cannot say, I can do whatever I want. So they are not free. Human beings can never be free. So the true freedom is in the ubudiyya and the slavery of Allah. So you are either going to be worship a human being, a celebrity, or some nationality. You are going to be worshiping your nationality, that I'm going to do this for my country, do that for my country. Okay. So you are going to do that, or you are going to be worshiping Allah. Okay. So you have to make a decision, make a choice whether you would like to have many gods that you are subservient to, or you are subservient to only one God. And Islam,
how would you answer the question of someone's asking the
is it? How can he live by himself?
Nowadays,
But the mobile phones, they are an extension of the society.
no, we just did a nice campaign. So there is
Yeah, but they still have some access to technology, some access to some forms of human society. They cannot live.
That's how it's
They don't. They don't. live without-
They don't move from one city to another city for 10 years, 15 years.
It's a question we can ask which we can answer from before. For example, in the Philippines and recently, there's There's a guy who was outcast on an island for roughly 40 years. No technology, no phone, apart from one thing, he just used to receive food once every 6 months or something.
What?
Yeah. He just used to live on island. And then he came
How
back.
did he survive? Once
So
every
what-
6
what-
months?
So how would so if someone was to ask, this guy's freedom is not bounded by anything, why does he still follow those rules?
No,
He's
look,
still bound to his nafs.
Why he came back? Why he came back? They brought him back. No, they brought him back.
yeah. So there are as you said in the Quran, "Ara'ayta man ittakhadha ilahan hawa." So you have not seen the one who has taken his desires as his God. So there are going to be desires which human beings are going to transgress if they are not given the revelation, the guidance of revelation. So therefore, if you are not bound by the society, if you're not bound by other human beings, you still have your eternal desires which can overcome.
But then such a person does not have any means to fulfill his desires. Right? I mean, there are no materials that he wants to gain.
There are general.
I guess it can come down to something basic like salah.
Yeah.
He still has to pay salah.
Yeah. So the thing is that the rule is made for the general. Okay, so there can be specifics as well, which can be discussed. There's no problem, but then the rule has to be made for the general population. If there are any exceptions, then we can debate about those exceptions. So we can say that okay, the nafs is going to overcome, and you cannot guide yourself into what is going to be the right way or what is going to be the wrong way. Or I don't know how we survived for 6 months, but yeah, but whatever, right? I'll have to look into it. But yeah, there are ways to answer. But then when we say something, we prescribe it to the general. We do not look at the specific, you can say, outliers. Therefore, this is a general rule that a human being is going to be worshipping the society, worshipping nationality, or worshipping another celebrity, right? So he's going to have many gods. So the true freedom is the worship of one God instead of worshiping many gods. And then finally, this is the final slide, inshallah. So now I'm going to start with this. Right? So this is going to be an open discussion, inshallah, but I'm going to start with it. I'm going to take the lead. So there are many problems that have been created in the world because of the modern and the postmodern way of thinking. Okay? And the implementation that has happened due to technology. So the technology that we have is a result of the modern way of thinking. So which has done a lot of good, but has done a lot of harm as well. So now we are going to discuss how Islam gives us the solution, how Islam gives us the principles, the paradigm through which we can solve many of the problems that the world faces today. And I'm going to discuss a few of them, and then I'm going to open to all of you so you guys can discuss it as well. So the first thing is that we observe that human beings, they are purpose driven and they want to have a meaning in life. So if you would have heard atheists as well, that look, I do not believe in any God, and I do not believe that my life has ultimate meaning, but I'm going to give my life the meaning. So therefore they inadvertently confirm that human beings need meaning in order to survive. So imagine if you wake up in the day, you don't have any meaning, any purpose. So you would be like, why am I doing this? And this is a philosophy which is called nihilism, in which you believe that there's no ultimate purpose to anything. So what Islam does is that Islam gives the meaning and the purpose to life. And Islam is the only religion and not only religion, but the only, you can say, worldview, which gives the answers to the big questions of life without falling into contradictions. So the big questions of life, where did we come from? What is our purpose of life? What are we doing here? Where are we going to go? Okay. So Islam is the only religion, so this is a claim which I'm going to make, inshallah, friend as well. So it's the only religion which can answer the big questions of life without falling into contradictions. Other religions try to answer it, but they fall into contradictions. Let's say other religions can say there are 2 gods, 3 gods, 1,000 gods. Okay, so we can show that there are contradiction in the idea of 3 gods, 4 gods, or 1,000 gods. And then Judaism, we mentioned that Judaism would say that an imperfect being is going to challenge a perfect creator. Because this is the concept of Judaism, that we can challenge some of the commands that are sent by God. And this goes against So this contradicts our reason as well. And then the Islam, as we say that science, if we look at science, science can never answer these questions. Where we have come from, where we are, what is the purpose of life, where we are going. Because science deals with empirical reality. It does not deal with ilmul ghaib. This is ilmul ghaib. This is the unseen reality. So Islam is the only religion which gives us the purpose. It satisfies our brain. It satisfies not our brain. It satisfies our mind as well as our heart. So therefore, we have the purpose of life. We know the purpose and the meaning of life, and we also can know the purpose of and the meaning of life without falling into the contradictions. So, if I may ask you, what is the meaning of life in Islam? What does Islam say about the purpose and meaning? Any idea? Anyone? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Submission to Allah. Very good. So, any particular verse of the Quran? So we have not created jinn and mankind, except to worship. So now I was about to say. So the concept of worship in Islam is not like the concept of worship in other religions. So in other religions, maybe you do a certain ritual, and that is only worship. In Islam, of course, you have got the rituals which are very important components of the worship. But then the worship is, again, we're talking about balance, we're talking about holistic perspective. So Islam also has a holistic perspective of worship. So anything that you do for the sake of Allah, within the parameters which are defined by Islam, that is going to be worship. So if you are going to serve your parents, that is going to be worship. If you are going to smile, that is going to be worship. Not smile in wrong places, but if you are going to smile the right way, that is going to be worship. Okay, so anything that you do within the halal parameters and for the sake of Allah, that's worship. And then also the modern and the postmodern paradigm, it confirms our body. So we have got medical doctors. It confirms that we have got mind. So we have got mental health practitioners as well. But it ignores our soul, and that is a very important part of human beings. In fact, that is the most important part. That is what defines human beings. Now, Islam takes the physical health and the spiritual and the mental health, all three of them, into account. Therefore, it is much more holistic way of looking at the human well-being. So spiritually, Islam says, the Quran says that the verse in the Quran, which is, anyone can help me with that verse? Allah bi zikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Okay. So only in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find peace. So people look at different things, let's say movies or some, some new spiritual things. Okay, so they try to do yoga, they try to do many other things in order to satisfy the spiritual thirst. You can see that many of the people who are agnostic and atheistic inclined, they have many things many superstitions that they believe in, okay, and many rituals that they do. And that is just because they want to satisfy the spiritual thirst. That's why that has been left by skepticism and agnosticism, by removing their religion out of their lives. There is a big gap that they have left inside them, and they try to fill it by doing different things. And this gap is filled by Islam in the most perfect sense. The spiritual way, the 5 type prayers that we have, the zakat that we give, the fasting that we have, and the azkar that we have, they provide the spiritual, they satisfy the spiritual need that they have as a human being. And then physical health, I'm not going to talk about that much, but in this day and age, we have the concept of mental health. So this is there are many studies about mental health done, a lot of focus on mental health, how people are mentally becoming sicker and sicker. So they might have a lot of wealth, they might have a lot of property, they might have lots of possessions, but what they do not have is happiness, what they call happiness and satisfaction. So Islam also takes care of the human being's mental health as well. So in the sense that Islam affirms that there are certain things that human beings need in order to be mentally well. And the very first thing that comes into mind is the Islamic emphasis on maintaining relationships. So the Harvard study that was done, a 75-year study that was done in Harvard University. For 75 years, they were tracking the subjects that they had, and they wanted to know what is that? What is the essence of true happiness? What makes people happy? They wanted to know. And there was one answer, and that was the satisfaction in relationships. So if you've got good relationships with your parents, with your family first of all, and then your extended family as well, your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues, if you've got good relationships with them, then you are going to live an overall happy and balanced life. And if you look at the Islamic paradigm, there's so much emphasis on maintaining relationships. Okay? Maintaining relationships not just within your family, but your extended family, your neighbors. So Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that Jibreel alayhi salam came to me and he was constantly telling me about the rights of the neighbors. So much that I thought that Jibreel alayhi salam is going to tell me that the neighbors also inherit from human beings as well, which of course did not happen. But so he was afraid that now neighbors are going to start inheriting as well. So Jibreel alayhi salam was emphasizing on the rights of neighbors so much. So now in this day and age, we have become more individualistic. So liberalism started upon individualism, and we focus upon individuals rather than maintaining our relationship with our family, our extended family, and our society around us. And that is again led to us becoming spiritually and mentally sick. Human beings, they might be physically very well, they might have a, I don't know, six-pack or whatever, but physically, physically they are fit, but spiritually they might be fit, but I mean, there are many fat people as well, so they might be physically fit, but spiritually and mentally they're sick. And the solution to the physical and mental sickness, the spiritual and mental sickness that we have, Islam presents it in the most comprehensive and in the best manner. And then another thing that is very important, another paradigm that's very important in Islam is the concept of shukr, gratitude. And if someone can read this particular hadith for me.
So,
Yeah, please.
In the Arabic or translate?
Okay, translate.
Okay. This is there is something strange in the meaning when he sees some of the good things, and he is so much happy and thankful. When he got some of tension or some of trial, he just start crying. I think
No.
It says, I think, strange is the affair of the believers.
Strange, yeah, wonderful. In this context, it's wonderful or wondrous.
That if something good happens to him,
Yeah. Yeah, that's shukr.
Yeah. And then if something bad happens to him, he adopts patience to it.
Excellent.
And that is, I mean, it's good for him in both cases.
Right. Full marks.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not the Arabic teacher, but whatever. I'm the proxy. So wondrous are the affairs of the believer. Okay. Now this believer, whenever the reason why I put this hadith in Arabic is because usually the translations that you have, in the translation, a Muslim is also a believer and a mu'min is also a believer. Whereas in the hadith it says mu'min. So this is exclusive to the mu'min. Right? Every Muslim is not a mu'min, whereas every mu'min is a Muslim. So Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says that so wondrous are the affairs of mu'min. That it is and it is only for the mu'min and not for anyone else. So if something good happens to him, he does shukr, he is grateful for what good happens to him, and that is good for him. And if something bad happens to him, if a calamity befalls him, then he does sabr, he is patient, and that is also good. Amazing. So this is the paradigm of shukr and also of sabr. Walasar, as he said, so so this is the paradigm that a Muslim has. That a Muslim is forever grateful for what Allah has given, whatever Allah has planned for him. And if, let's say, calamity befalls a Muslim, not a Muslim, a mu'min, so calamity befalls him, then he does sabr and he has trust in Allah's plan that whatever has happened to him, that Allah is going to bring something khair in the long term. So whatever the mu'min goes through in this world, he looks at it from an optimistic lens instead of looking at it from a pessimistic lens. Okay? So if you look at most of the postmodern activists, the woke activists, they're so angry about the injustices that happen to them. Okay, and they complain all the time. Okay, this is bad, this is wrong, cancel them, cancel that. This is against Islamic paradigm. Right? Islamic paradigm says that, okay, we strive for whatever is just. But in that strive, if you are going to achieve your target, then good, you do the shukr, and that's good for you. But if you fail, and if there's some calamity that happens to you, then you also do the shukr and you do the sabr, you are grateful for that one as well, and you are patient, and that is also good. For a movement, everything is good. So this paradigm, if you are going to apply this paradigm into our lives, so it's going to be much more better for us, for our outlook of how to live our lives, and also in order to control our emotions. So this is an amazing paradigm that Islam gives us. And then finally, the thing that I'm going to talk about before opening the floor is that Allah has sent human beings on this planet to be the Khalifa, to be the vice to take care of the planet. And we discussed about technology in the first session. We also discussed about some of the second session as well, in which we were mentioning the postmodern critique of technology. And we acknowledge, as Muslims, we acknowledge that there are some things in technology that are benefit to us. Say the blockchain. Okay. The healthcare system that we have today that is able to let's say prevent or cure many diseases which were unthinkable back in the days, which were deadly diseases back in the day. So we are grateful for that. But there are many things that have happened because of the technology which are, you can say, harmful to the society. So some of the examples can be the environmental damage that technology has done. So technology mixed with capitalism, you produce, and you destroy the planet, you don't care. Now the poor countries, they're suffering, and the rich countries, they can use their money, they can use the cloud, but then the poor countries are the ones that are suffering from the climate change that is happening. So this massive injustice that is happening is enabled partly, and most probably, not most probably, but how would you say, is enabled by technology and also capitalism. Technology and capitalism, both of them mixed together. So I would like to propose one thing, right? So that is, how do we, let's say the question from a scientist or from an engineer would be, okay, so if, let's say you are saying that there can be harmful effects of technology, there can be some good things about technology as well. So what should the Muslims do to produce technology that is largely beneficial? Anyone can give me the answer. How does the Islamic paradigm would help an engineer in order to come up with solutions that are going to be beneficial to the environment, beneficial to the earth, and beneficial to the human beings in general, rather than coming up with these disastrous solutions? Any idea how can Islam guide us?
The solution is for the humanity, then you have to go with that. Otherwise, you have to leave that.
Yeah, instead of individual, instead of thinking about your wealth, your bank account, you're thinking for humanity. Very good, excellent. Anything else?
Simplicity.
Huh? Simplicity. How simplicity? Oh, simplicity of life. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, this is very good. Instead of excellent, very good. Instead of becoming opulent, instead of making things which are going to, you don't need them, but you are just making them. Yeah, very good. Right.
You can reuse things and also distribute the things which you have extra.
Excellent. So taking care of the environment,
people, and also
taking care of the environment.
the things, for example, just like before that, this also tells us the Islam via we use to mend the clothes, need to do such of activities which Holy Prophet peace be upon him.
Yeah.
And in the past they did.
So that comes into
That
simplicity as well.
In the first lecture, we talked about how science is inherently not value neutral.
Yeah.
So if we can do Islam science, like if you're going to hold a value at all, might as well hold an Islamic value.
Very good. So what will be the Islamic value? How would you define it?
I'm a layman.
I'm a layman too. So what do we do now? We go to the chef. Where's the chef? Oh. Chef not found. Okay, chef Google. Oh, okay. Okay, Brother Ahmed, you know the Maqasid Sharia.
Man,
Can you tell me?
I don't know.
Huh?
I know it's just like very
Just tell me the 5 Maqasid Sharia.
حفظ النفس حفظ الجسد حفظ
Religion, deen.
And the deed.
That's right. Okay, so preservation of deen and preservation of life, preservation of property, preservation of lineage, and preservation of intellect. These are the five. Huh?
Intellect.
Yeah. After. Yeah.
Oh, intellect. I
Intellect.
heard internet.
No, no. Yeah. So yeah, these five. So all of the rulings in Islam can be boiled down into these five principles. So the rulings of Islam are doing one of these five. Either they are preserving the religion, or they're preserving the intellect, preserving the religion, or preserving the life, or they're preserving the property, or they're preserving the intellect, or they're preserving the lineage. So let's say, for example, you have a ruling that you cannot have relationships outside of marriage. So that is preserving your lineage. And you have got rulings that you cannot kill somebody, you cannot do vigilante justice, so you cannot kill somebody just because you want to. So that is preserving life. And you have got many elaborate rules about inheritance and about property rights. So therefore, you are protecting the property rights of the people. So all of the rulings in Islam can be boiled down into these five principles, which Imam Ghazali said, and then later people also expanded upon it. So now the Muslims can have this paradigm. So let's say if I'm a scientist, if I'm an engineer, I'm an entrepreneur, I have this paradigm that look, I want to produce a technology which is going to preserve life. So I'm going to produce, maybe I'm going to go into the medical industry and have medical equipment, or I'm going to have the sort of medicines which are going to enhance life, which are going to make the life better for people, which are going to prevent them from catching different diseases. Or if I'm going to engage in a technology which is going to protect people's rights. So let's say if I am building a technology which is going to be used to spying into other people. So I know that if I'm going to build this technology, other governments are going to use in order to spy into other people. So why build it in the first? So let's say if I'm going to use the social media, if you guys don't know that Facebook basically came out of something which was wrong, right? Which was inherently wrong. That the founder of the Facebook, he wanted to share the pictures of women and stuff and grade them and stuff, right? And then from that came social media. So therefore, if I'm going to look at the technology from the Islamic paradigm, then I'm going to think, okay, the things that I'm pushing onto the people, are they going to lead to the preservation of the life, preservation of the intellect, preservation of the property, or it's going to be against it? It's going to violate their property. It's going to violate their intellect. So let's say the scholars say that the alcohol is bad because it removes us from our intellect. So it just makes us this animalistic animal. There is no difference between a drunk person and an animal. The drunk person is going to be lying here and there, and he's going to be passing urine and stuff like that. He's going to be vomiting here and there. He does not have the control over his intellect. Okay? So therefore, just like that, we've got these destructive and addictive technologies, right, which destroy humanity. So you've got deliberately made. So these technologies are not like you did not thought about it. Yeah, these are deliberately made. These marketing is done by psychologists who are expert in making people addicted to these. They know what causes addiction, and that is how they make it. And whereas from an Islamic paradigm, this is going to be completely removed. So as much as can, of course, human beings are going to make mistakes and there are going to be things which are going to be harmful, but as long as our niyyah is right, inshallah, most of the things that are going to come out of the Islamic paradigm are going to be pure. It's going to be clear, and they are going to be beneficial for the humanity rather than causing lots of destruction and devastation. Okay. So any other things that you guys can know of how Islam solves? There are many things, but I've just restricted to a few. Any other things that you guys can maybe see? So I mentioned individual problems that Islam can solve: social or political, environmental, technological, anything that you.
One thing, spiritual health is something. What is the basic? It's might appear some of the scholars because we can't change. This is not something. For example, even we are Muslim, we are still recurring over sometimes spiritual health. If somebody is not praying, we don't have any medicine to give them, and he start praying. There's no cure. Just like spiritual health is something, another one. We don't say that if anybody is killing some of the person, we don't have any cure for this. This is related to the spiritual sector. What is your comment about this? I have heard such type of
It
thing.
means that
Which
he's
set by mind,
spiritually sick.
spiritually sick. For example, we are Muslim.
Mhm.
Some Muslims don't go for prayer, some Muslims don't do the fasting. Basically, the thing is we don't have such type of cure. This can be only cured by the spiritual things or spiritual health. We can't use any medicine to cure spiritual health or any other technology to cure that.
Yeah, that's correct.
You need to have a maybe. Would you like to elaborate? This is where this is something we can go to the scholars to get this type of.
Oh, how to get spiritual?
Yeah.
help. That is your.
Yeah, that's
Okay, how to get.
Is there a number? WhatsApp number?
It's on eBay.
So you take the number of the chef and then you can contact him before he goes. Okay? Before he leaves, you can contact him. So, $5,000 per hour, 20. Okay, so so how do we attain the spiritual health? Right? So that comes with many things. So the first thing is that building your iman. So as Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, that iman can fluctuate as well. Right? So therefore, iman is not going to be constant. So in this day and age, as I just said, that back in the days, human beings were more closer to their fitrah. They were more inclined towards believing in God, believing in religion. Now, because we are far removed and we have so many influences, therefore we are far away from fitrah. So what we have to do is that we have to awaken the fitrah somehow. Let's say if I am with someone who does not pray or does not fast. Let's say I'm the one who has to convince him to pray and to fast. So therefore, there are certain things that we can do in order to awaken the fitrah. That awakening of the fitrah can happen through, it depends on individual case by case. So it can happen through good akhlaq. So I am very good to him. So he's going to naturally gravitate towards me that, okay, this guy is so good to me. Right? So therefore, he has got something good going on. So he will naturally catch me. And also from encouraging him to join good company. So Muhammad said that the human beings are upon the religion of their friends. So therefore, a good company, a good friend is like a perfume. So you are going to be spiritually healthy if you have good friends. If you have with bad friends, he's like a black smell. So you are going to be stained with whatever smoke and fire, or smoke, black things that black smell does, right? So what is it called?
Do you think that spiritual also naturally or by God it also have some people have a good
Everybody
just like Olia and other good people. They have a spiritually from the by God gifted quality. Some people have, for example, some people are intelligent, some have good in mathematics, some qualities some people have in their nature. Einstein have maybe quality more intellectual person, maybe something have Olia have a special spiritual qualities.
Every human being has a fitrah, and that fitrah is spiritual, right? Inclines him towards spirituality. And there are two, just like in modern science, we focus on physical health, okay, and we focus on physical intelligence, right? What we can see, mathematics, or we can see that he is very intelligent in mathematics. Islam has got two types of intelligence, two types of senses. One is the physical intelligence, and the other is the spiritual intelligence. One is the physical senses, and the other is the spiritual senses. So when in the Quran, Allah says, "Summum bukum umyun," so that is their deaf, dumb, and blind. So that does not mean that they're physically deaf, dumb, and blind, that they cannot see, they cannot hear. That means that they're spiritually deaf, dumb, and blind. So similarly, the aql, the qalb that the Quran mentioned, that the Hadith mentioned, so these are the spiritual intellect rather than physical. That's something that it is. So now, as you said that intelligent is going to be spiritually intelligent. So let's say a spiritually intelligent person is going to look at science and he's going to see divine science in science. That is going to increase his iman. And a physically intelligent person who's a secular intelligent person who's devoid of religion, right? He's going to look at the nature and it's going to not affect him. He's going to say, okay, it's randomness, it's just survival and reproduction, there's no reason and rhyme behind it. So the important thing is how to establish the spiritual health, right? How to become spiritually intelligent and how to maintain that spiritual health. And that comes with one thing, that is humility. So human beings have to, because of the paradigm that we have, individualism, we are the owners of our body and this, right? So this has inculcated a sort of entitlement to human beings. So back in the days, human beings did not have a lot of technology, which had lots of problems. But the one good thing that they had was that they were very dependent on the nature, right? So they were dependent on the rain, they were dependent on these things. So therefore, they were naturally inclined towards believing in God because they had this propensity, they had this, you can say, this need of calling to God when things were wrong. Okay? So now human beings are in a false illusion that they don't need anything, right? They're independent, self-sufficient. If the farmers are going to stop producing food, they're going to die, but they think that they're self-sufficient. Okay, so they have this false sense of
The
security.
best one is self-made.
Self-made, yeah,
Self-made entrepreneur.
yeah,
I mean, man, you need people to make you.
yeah. Yeah. So the problem is that you need to be that in order to be spiritually healthy. The starting point is by observing the world around you and to realize that there are so many variables outside of you that you're not under control. I can go outside, I can give this lecture, I can go outside and something happens to me, I can never speak to them. This can happen. And maybe someone who's a great athlete, he can injure his knee and he will never be able to play. So if you are at a certain position, that is because there are so many variables that are outside your control. Yeah, I mean, there are so many variables that are outside of your control that something can go wrong and then you can not be in a position that you are. So the human beings have to realize this either by using their own intelligence. So spiritually intelligent people, they realize this. Therefore, they humble themselves. Whereas if someone who is in that paradigm, who is like, I'm just self-made thing, then you can tell them that this is, I mean, you are not a self-made person, right? You are dependent upon so many things, and there were so many things that could have gone wrong, and then you are dependent upon so many variables that you do not control. So it is Allah who's under control. So the reason that you're successful is not because of you, it is because of Allah that you're successful. So once you made them realize, once you made them humble, then that humbleness, that humility is going to lead to spiritual health, and that's spiritual health. I think that humbleness, humility is the key to unlocking spiritual journey, to the spiritual journey towards Islam. Okay. So, yep. Anything
How
else?
can we increase humility?
That's a whole other conversation.
Then it's only four and you realize no, I really like okay, so you might say prayer,
Yeah.
and fasting.
Even some people do all the things, but their spiritual health is still weak. They are doing all that. If they go out, they do all the. They need to have some of the, maybe sitting in some of the scholars, maybe they need to get more power. It's like
More power.
More power. Just like spiritual health power. It's just like something.
I think one
I want to go to scholar, give me some power.
I think one activity.
Yeah, sometimes if you go to, I know some of the person, hundreds of the person, I listen, maybe imams and they are different scholars, but some people, maybe selected one or two, you start reading when you hear their sermon or something like this. And this is some spiritual, they have done it something maybe more closer to Allah, and that effect have a similar effect. Just like Hazrat Luqman said that if you are, it was advice to his son, if you are sitting in the good people, it's just like Allah will forward the blessing of that one person. Even you are sleeping there, you will get one, for example, one drop of this one nur, then you will be also granted something. And if you are sitting in some of the society, and like this, but this is also reference to Hadith sitting in near the fire, and you will also take some of the ash, and then
Ash was the word. Thank you. Okay, yeah. So that we discussed about the importance of good company. So good company is going to keep you in good health, spiritual health. Bad company is going to, do the aspect. Yeah. What was the question? How to increase humility? That's a good question from a wrong person. Yeah.
One of the things that I found helpful is volunteering.
Yeah.
And especially, for example, when you go sit with the poor, like try to help the poor, really, try to see what they go through, etc.
Yeah.
That's very complex.
Yeah.
I mean, the scholars used to like clean the masajid or
Yeah.
I think so. One more thing more want to elaborate, because same like the Holy Prophet, we are come to you and we find we feel something different when we put out different imam, different position of imam. I think so. This is same like other prophets also similar have a, because Holy Prophet is okay, you are here different because this is some. And if you are sitting in the some of the good people or good some of the more closer to Allah or maybe more closer to the Holy Prophet Allah, maybe you will get the same thing here if you sit.
You'll get the blessing.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, if you are sitting in good company, then you will have that blessing. Blessing to be.
There's one,
Yeah, and
there's one scholar, senior scholar. He's very funny scholar, very funny. And he said, so there is a saying that the side of the scholar, when you look at the scholar, your right side gets strong. So he went out to one of the lectures and said, people say this to me, my wife wears glasses. Like if my wife wears glasses,
special powers.
Some of the special book also we have this one for the emotions we have, like this one. If you have maybe Islamic also said this kind of word.
I'm not an expert. So
No.
ask.
Just like-
You have an expert here.
You have heard this one.
I have no opinion.
I think we can continue these discussions afterwards, like after the Isha.
Okay.
You can ask him.
You know, guidance.
Spiritual guidance left us. So, okay.
yeah.
Spiritual scout, baby.
Actually, there is one book, again, the same book. Yeah, I'm recommend. It's called Thinking Person's Guide to Islam. The book is called Thinking Person's Guide to Islam. And in this book, the author is scholar. He discusses 12 versions of Islam. And what I found from this book is he goes to the details of what is nafs, what is ruh, what are the differences. Yes, which I didn't find somewhere else. What's the difference between ruh? Yes. So what's the difference between the ruh and nafs, and what are the different modes of nafs, different states that nafs can be in, etc. And then there is knowledge there. There is knowledge that we can read and we can now differentiate.
Okay, Jazakallah.
All right, Jazakallah khair, Ikhwan. And what? Let me just